So if you've been watching our videos, one of the things we keep saying is that it's an amazing time to buy, but right now it is not a good time to sell. But what we're going to be talking about today is how to price your home in a market like this. We're going to dive deep on why the pricing matters, also what days on market and how long you're spending on market and how that matters. But the most important one that we're going to be talking about is being realistic as a seller and understanding what the market has to offer right now. I'm Boanka with the Compass team.
And it's Safraz with the Compass team.
And it's time to talk about listing your house and where prices and things actually need to be. So again, if you've been watching our page, first of all, thank you and we appreciate it. But I'm sure you've seen, we've been talking about, hey, it's a great time to buy. It's a great time to buy. It's a great time to buy because there is a lot of supply right now. And Safras, we always love to talk about supply and demand because that's what really moves the market.
Absolutely. It's really an unprecedented time for this long. Like we didn't see 2008. We were really young at that time. We saw it, in the job market, but in the real estate market, actually seeing it, and this long, it's been, I would say close to 4 years now of it being mostly a buyer's market. And when we look at numbers, you just see it, except maybe this month, every year over year, every month over month, you still see high inventory, meaning a lot of people are trying to sell, right? But a lot of units are moving. And I think that's the biggest problem that we've run into. And now there's tons of inventory just anywhere you look, really, except those very, very tiny hot pockets.
Yeah, so let me put this in perspective for you. So we calculate things based on months of inventory. That's how we kind of decide how much supply there is. So months of inventory right now where we're sitting at is over 5 months of inventory. In January, it was even higher. Right now, this video is made in middle of April 2026. Now, what's important for you to know is, what does that mean, 5 months of inventory? Basically, if with all of the homes that we currently have, if no new homes came to the market, it would take 5 months of them to sell. And anything that's like 4 or 5 months of inventory, even 3 can be like considered a buyer's market. Now anything that's like under 2 months of inventory, now that's when we become a seller's market. And something healthy is like 2 or 3 months of inventory, and then we're in a good seller's market. Things are moving, people's buying, people's selling, and it's flowing. And this is where we were for a long time. And then it went crazy, and we got to less than 1 month of inventory. There were some places where we were seeing even like half a month of inventory, which is crazy, meaning anytime something comes up, it's like sold in like 2 seconds. So this is where we were back in like 2021, 2022. And what that happened was it drove the price up so much. And one of the things that we're seeing in a market like today is a lot of people, they still want that price, that 2021, 2022 price.
Yeah, and it's really like expectations, right? Even though we see it, of course, every day, week in and week out, prices are down, prices are down. But sometimes in, certain pockets or certain buildings, the comps, naturally, they're a little older. So people say, hey, my neighbor 2 years ago got 920. I want 900. And they think, hey, that's reasonable. But the truth of the matter is, from those 2 years, maybe even 3 years, the price has dropped significantly, where you'd even have to price it at somewhere in the eights, like low eights, maybe 820. As an example, it's 100K lower, which is, naturally everybody thinks their home is the greatest home, even myself. When I'm selling, I'm like, this is the greatest home. You would love it for this, that, and the other. However, the market speaks, when it's time to sell. The market truly speaks to it.
Yeah. Another thing that's very important to know is like, is your home a condo? Is your home, is it a detached home? Is it a semi-detached home? Different pockets. When we say 5 months of inventory, that's the GTA as a whole. But some places like downtown condos are going to have more months of inventories. And some places like Durham or EO1, they're gonna have less months of inventory. So it's all about like special pockets and understanding the micro markets as well. But we do like to talk as a whole to just help you get a better understanding.
Yeah, and then specifically talking about general markets and months of inventory, when you look at an area like Leslie, when you look at an area like Beaches, in today's market, I'm still seeing bidding wars. I'll go show a property and I'm like, this guy got 6 offers in 7 days, and it's really unheard of. But in those pockets, you still see 7, 15 days. Things are really moving, but as long as they're priced correctly, those are the ones that are still moving. And that's why we're making this video, because we don't want people to, be on the market for 30, 60 days. Whereas if you price it correctly, we can move things forward for both parties, right?
Yeah. So now I have a story for you guys. So just did a listing presentation just like last week, and this client, they actually bought for 550 back in the peak of the market, and they're looking to sell. It's just a 1 bedroom condo. Then it's in a place where there's lots of inventory right now, and now we started talking and doing all the research on everything and going through, kind of market analysis and what's happening in the market. And there was 2 properties that I really wanted to share with her to help her understand kind of what's going on and what's happening. The first property was originally listed for 620,000, and that was in September of 2024. Okay, September 2024. Now, they 620, then they switched to like 610, and that was a couple months later, maybe like November, December. Then they went back to 620. I don't know what was going on there. And then now it becomes the new year of 2025. Now they say, okay, let's drop to 599. And then around like September. Now, this whole time they were listed and it was vacant. Around September, they said, okay, you know what? Let's try and be a little bit more aggressive. They went to 550,000. So they go to 550,000, and it's still the whole entire 25. They were not able to sell it. It was sitting there vacant. And then they get to basically February of 2026. Okay. So it's been over like a year, almost a year and a half. And then they drop the price to 499 and they end up selling for 485. So all that to say, like from 620 to 485, the seller had to go through a roller coaster. And that's just like, it sucks when your home is listed and it's just up in limbo and you're just sitting there and you're waiting. It's a hard weight to carry.
Yeah, and it's for that timeline it was 18 months. So naturally, if life in hindsight, of course, if you look back at the stats, 18 months, that seller could likely have gotten more than the 485 had they just bitten the bullet and listed it at the market price or slightly below, whatever it may be, back then, right? Like 18 months ago. But as the condo market has just, if you look at the condo market chart, it's primarily going down and it's flattened out a little bit. It's called like catching the falling knife. If you do that, you're just going to get hurt. It's better to get in front of it, right? Had they priced it strategically back then in 2024, September, which is 18 months, they likely would have gotten more than what they had now. But then you also have to think, it's stressful to have a property listed for that long, right? It's stressful. Then considering, you still have to pay the maintenance fee.
Let's talk about it. We're gonna talk about hard costs right now.
Hard costs, yeah.
Months, okay. Yeah. So let's say the maintenance fee is $450. Property tax is per month. Property tax was about $250, and a mortgage on something like that, we don't know, but we can. What do you want to guess?
Let's call it 2,400.
2,400. Let's just say 2,000. Maybe they put down more money. Maybe they had it longer. Let's just say 2,000. So 700 plus 2,000. We're looking at 2,700 per month times 18 months. That's 48,600. That's almost $50,000 in holding costs. $50,000 in holding costs. This is why it's important to list your price properly, because they were so stuck on, hey, I gotta get an extra 10,000, 20,000, maybe 30,000. You ended up holding it and paying all this money into it, and that's what happens. Okay, so this is one example that I showed the client, but there's another example that I showed the client as well. someone else. Beautiful property, definitely nicer than the other one, but they priced it properly. So they priced it at 520 to start, and it was a nice property, and they ended up selling for 505 in 6 days.
Yep.
Now, again, and this is very recent. This is in April, or yeah, this is in April or maybe March. But very recently this happened, and this just goes to show the difference. It's you feel when your home is sold and you have a firm sale, you feel good. You feel good compared to when your home is just sitting on the market. Maybe you haven't had a showing in 2 weeks. Maybe somebody's come and they put in a lowball offer. You feel good once it's firm and you have that off of your plate.
Yeah, and a lot of real estate is psychology, right? Psychology on both sides, buyers and sellers. And as real estate agents, when we start looking at a listing and we're like, you know what, this home's been listed for 18 months. And we tell our buyers, hey, this home's been listed for 18 months. They've had 10 different price changes, price drops, price increase somewhere in between for some unknown reason. And even the buyer in their head, they're like, is there something wrong with the unit? Maybe the pictures look great, but it sucks. So right before they even get into the property, they have a negative stigma of this property. Maybe the seller's example, like, when they listed it for $499, maybe even before we even start, our buyer might think, hey, you know what? Maybe they still want 600 and we're just wasting time getting there. So it affects the psychology of the buyer to even getting into the property, and sometimes that deters the amount of people you can get in the door, right?
Yeah. So with this client wanted, remember, she bought for 550. So she's like, man, I'm hoping to get 540, 550, somewhere around there. And yeah, she was just not happy to hear this. But this is like what you need to hear. We're not gonna go out there and say, hey, we'll get you 600, and then later on we gotta say, oh yeah, maybe it's gotta be 500. That's not the business that we're in. But many times I also told her, I don't think you should be selling. And again, I'm telling you, don't sell unless you have a good reason to sell. Unless you're taking that money and you're going to buy something else and you're getting a great deal on the buy. Or you're taking that money and you say, you know what, I'm done with real estate. I just want to go with stocks. Or maybe your kids are going to school and you want to sell it for them. Unless you have like a very good reason to be selling your home, you should not be selling your home in a time like this.
It's, we always say the main reasons, typically that, people want to sell a condo, maybe to upsize. But, when we talked about this person, we said, what are they going to do with the money, right? If there's useful and vital reasons for them to use that money, go do it, right? Because right now, she's naturally going to take a loss. It is what it is. But if, she can hold on, it's being rented, right? You don't want it to be vacant for another year or 6 months. As long as it's rented, we said, you know what, just run it until you need the money. Because if it's money you need, of course, it's a different story. It's urgency. But if there's no urgency, just ride the wave a little bit, right? Things can change. Maybe it'll take a couple of years. But unless you need to sell, don't. Like, the market is not there for that. And if you're okay with it, all right, we can talk about it.
Yeah. So one thing that's really important is like just being realistic. So what our goal is always when we're meeting with you is we want you to understand what's happening in the market, what the market is like, and then from there it also can help you become more realistic, because maybe you see, hey, back in the day I bought it for 550, or back in 2022 my neighbor sold for 920, now I want 900. Like, we're hearing this all the time, but again, it is our job as real estate agents, real estate professionals, to help you understand. But one of the most important things to be able to sell your home in a market right now is you have to be realistic, and you have to understand what's going on in the market, what's going on in your pocket, in your neighborhood,
Absolutely.
in your micro market, and we will show you everything, and we're also going to tell you where we think we should list.
Yeah, and it's like I said before, everybody's home, condo, whatever it may be, you think it's the nicest, right? You naturally go into homes and you say, my home was better because of X, Y, Z. And our job is to remove the emotions out of it and say, you know what, realistically, yes, your home may be better, but on a dollar basis, how much better is it? And then we factor in what the market is doing, and also marketing, of course, we'll do a great job there. But at the same time, numbers speak, right? If your home is just beautiful on the inside, but your neighbor sold for 800K. Is it realistic to say, you know what, my home was worth 300K more? Probably not. We'll have to crunch the numbers. What does it cost to do these renovations? How much better is it? And then we'll put a number on it. And, usually we can get it right to a close number.
Yeah, but being realistic is going to help you a lot. Just again, if you're selling right now, you're most likely not going to be as happy as you would have been if you were selling in 2021,
Yeah.
2022. And just times have changed, and it's important to understand that we're pretty much 4 years away from that time. So you can't really be looking back at the peak of the market and saying like, oh man, I wish I could get something like this. So recently we had another sale that happened. And Safraz, you want to tell them about kind of what the client wanted and how things went?
Absolutely. So it was a beautiful detached home in a community where, there's very similar homes, right? Like think about new development in the last 10, 20 years. Very similar homes, different models, but same micro market because it's just up the street. We had a home that sold a year prior. Exact same home, not as renovated, but a footprint of the home is the exact 100% same. That unit sold for 1180. So 1180, let's call it 1.2. It sold for 1.2, but it took them 3 months. So my client came to me and said, hey, they need to sell. So they needed to sell and they needed to sell quick. So those two things. But they said, hey, the neighbors sold for...
And they had already bought there.
They already bought. So because they already bought...
And at a great price.
They bought at a great price. So, they got a great deal there. They saved like $200,000-$300,000 on the buy, right? Compared to a year prior. But, when I spoke to them, they said, hey, we know our neighbor sold, one of the neighbors sold for 1180. I think we can get 12. And I said, hey, you know what? I appreciate it. Your home is lovely. But that was a year ago. And the market has shifted a lot in the last year, right? The market shifted 10 to 15% for these same homes in the last year. And number two, you're telling me we need to sell and close in 45 days or 60 days, 2 months. A lot of that is great. And the seller said, you know what? We want to price it just a little above 1.2 so we could end up around 1.2. And he said, hey, you know what? First of all, you have a tight timeline, 60 days. We need to sell and close. It's not just selling. You can definitely sell it in 2 months, but sell and close, and the new buyer has to take possession of your current home, all in 60 days, very tough. So they said they wanted to price a little over 1.2 to end at 1.2. I said, you know what? The market is not where it was at a year prior to us listing. I said, we need to be aggressive. We need to get eyes on this property. And if we don't, then I need 2 months to sell it because we're going to have to go through this process of let's find where the market value is. But I already told them, if you get anything close to even 1.1, you should take it and run. So we did have to price it strategically. And just to get the eyeballs on it, we actually priced it at $999, right below $1 million. This is a detached home in a good area. And I said, I guarantee you in 7 days, it will be sold. In 7 days. And again, I talked to all something we do is, especially in a property like this, I called all the agents that sold properties in the last 6 months, and many of them said, hey, we had 8 showings, in a month, and then we had to drop the price, and then they kept dropping the price for 2-3 months to get it sold. So I said, we need to be ahead of the ball for that. So when we priced it at $999, we had over 90 showings in 7 days. The open house probably had 50 plus people, and on offer date, we had 6 offers. And guess what we sold? 1.1 flat. We sold it at 1.1 flat. And the client was really happy because we closed in 45, they closed in 45 days. And that, they said if they didn't close within that time of all of this happening, they would have had to shell out another 25,000 for all these other costs. So again, we priced it at $999. We had at least 150 people walk through the doors, groups of people walk through the door to see the property, 6 offers, and we sold it. I thought above what it was worth at the time, even like 1.1 was 10 out of 10 home run.
Yeah. So I mean, again, it's very important to know your micro market.
Yeah.
This is what Safraz is talking about, knowing your micro market, and then also being realistic about what the timeline is and what you're looking to get. And then lastly is trusting your real estate agents. But always keep in mind the list price is what we're listing at, what we're hoping to get. But at the end of the day, nothing ever happens until you sign on the dotted line.
Absolutely.
And you say, I agree to this, I want this, I'm ready to move forward with this, and you sign it, you have the last say every single time.
Yeah. You know, at the end of the day, when we do get the number, none of this happens without the seller's agreement, right? We'll talk to the seller, say, hey, this is what we received. There's always multiple negotiations between us and the buying agent, of course, right? We go back and forth a few times. We eventually will come to a place where both parties are happy, but like Blanca said, the seller, makes the final decision. It's not me, it's not Blanca, it's nobody else. Get a comfortable number. If it makes sense, great. Sometimes we get offers that it's like they want a 6-month closing. Hey, we need to sell in 90 days. We can't have that happen, right? Like whatever it may be, the price and the terms are very important. Price and the terms, it needs to work for our goal when we're selling. And that's the only time we're able to sell anyways.
Okay, so let's talk about all the things. So pricing, the days on market, the time it takes to sell, and also being realistic. So when it comes to pricing, what would you say is like your number one tip for someone who's, hey man, I'm thinking about selling right now.
So pricing, we always say, be a little ahead, right? So if we know we're going into a market, or the market we've been in for the last little while, is that, you know, the prices are going down. So if we're using comparisons from 6 months ago, sometimes for a home in a micro pocket, there might not be many comps, right? With the condos, sometimes there's 300 units, and there's going to be a bunch of comparisons that you could actively use. But let's say it's a home, you know, you see it and it's like 6 months, so price it accordingly to what has happened in that time frame, right? Sometimes it's 3 months, and the market can shift very quickly in 3 months. It can pick up, it can slow down, can go flat. Price it in accordance to when we're going to list, but just a little sugar on top to get as many eyeballs in front.
Yeah. And then for days on market, what I would say is like you heard the story of the person who took 18 months. You definitely don't want to be them. You heard the story of the person who took 5 days. That's who you want to be. You don't want this weight. There's a weight that there's a weight that comes with being on the market and not knowing. It's an uncertain time with a very big transaction that's going to be happening in your life, and you don't want to just go around carrying that. It's going to cause you stress. Some people can't sleep. Like there's a lot of things that have to do with that. So then again, you have to remember what we talked about before, pricing. You have to make sure your pricing is right, and then understanding how long is something going to take to sell, and making sure that you're priced right and the home looks great as well. And then another thing that's also big that we didn't really talk about is do your best to accommodate all showings.
Oh yeah, that's really important.
That's something that's very important. Like do your best to accommodate all showings, because sometimes someone is already seeing 2 other ones in the neighborhood and they're just, hey, let's go check that one out as well. And maybe that your home could be for them, but you say, oh, you know what? We can't do it right now. We don't want to clean up. We're out. Just do your best to accommodate the showings, because you never know who that buyer is going to be. And they can't always just reschedule. They might be coming from an hour away and they're just coming to see these ones, and they might not be coming back again. And yeah, the last thing is being realistic. What's your number one tip for someone to be realistic?
Being realistic will definitely help you, right? We'll show you exactly what we think. And, you know, many times we see it where seller says, you know what, I think it's worth that, but I personally want to try a little higher. But again, it ties into all of it, right? Days on market, being realistic, all of it ties into one piece. We have to be a little ahead of the market, especially in a down market, because if the, you know, as you know, with the 18-month, if they were realistic at the time, they might have gotten $599, $585, whatever it may be at the time, right? So being realistic, it's you sit down, we help you remove the emotional part of it, right? It's this is what we think it's gonna be worth today, and just be open to it. And typically, as what I've seen and what we've seen, is it definitely will sell around the realistic price in today's market.
Yes, yes. Okay, so yeah, we appreciate you guys being with us this whole time and getting a better understanding of of how to price your home properly to get it sold in today's market in Toronto. If this is something that you really like, give it a thumbs up. And if you know somebody who's thinking about selling, or maybe they've already been on the market for a while, send this video to them to kind of help give them a better understanding. But I'm Boanka with the Compass team.
And it's Safraz with the Compass team.
And we'll see you guys on the next one.